In today's In Detail segment, we're going to be reviewing dining spaces in single-family houses, and all the examples we pulled are from the Vancouver area.
So as you remember from the slow home test, in a slow home, the dining area is a principal living space that it can accommodate a table suitable for daily use. Now, of course, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong and can go right in dining rooms.
Yeah.
And in single-family houses, I think one of the things that we've discovered is that you can have multiple dining spaces.
Yeah,
right?
and that can cause a lot of problems because what we found, and you'll see this in our examples, is oftentimes when there's two dining spaces, one is pretty good and the other not so good.
Right, and that thing that's not so good, usually it's about a lack of focus or circulation conflict, an odd proportion, a bad size.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So as you remember from the What's Wrong with This House book, John and I have identified some rules of thumb for dining spaces, and they are, first of all, that they have to be proportioned to fit a table and chairs without wasting space.
You'd think that would be obvious,
but it's not. It's not. And also dining spaces should not be redundant or falsely labeled spaces.
That's right. The third rule of thumb is that it should be a multifunctional space that is not cut off from other principal living areas. And the fourth is that it should have good natural light and ventilation, like all principal rooms.
Exactly. So let's have a look at some of the examples that I pulled from Vancouver. And I have to say, overall in Vancouver, the dining spaces weren't so bad.
There's good food in Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an example that I think is good. We have a nook space as well as a dining space, and right. I think both of them are good. They're both proportioned to fit a table. They both have views to the exterior, and they're both located outside of the main zone of circulation.
Yeah,
so I think those are good examples. Now we're going to start to get off a little bit. Here is a nook space, which I think is actually really nice.
Yeah, no,
the
that
way
is
it is.
Nice. Yeah.
Really great. Dining space is a problem. It's right in the middle of the house behind the garage. There's no window.
Yeah.
It feels like it's in a basement to me, like it feels like a basement space. So that is not a good dining space at all.
No.
Let's look at this one. This is another issue that we get all the time. And here the nook space is basically a mudroom.
Yeah, it is.
It's more or less right off the garage. We've got a closet plus the powder room all right there.
So basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting your books and briefcases and iPods and iPads
on that table,
and you're not going to eat there.
No, there's about 4 things that are really wrong with this nook, so that's not great. This dining space is okay,
but it's not great.
I say okay. It's not great. Let's look at another example. This is what we see a lot in single-family houses that are long and narrow. The kitchen area is in the back. The nook takes the place next to the kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't like this because we've got that view right into the kitchen, the workspace of the kitchen, plus we've got the door to the deck. It just feels to me like it's part of the kitchen. It doesn't feel like a space unto itself.
And that's a pretty important space, that when you're in a long, narrow house, you don't have a lot of light, and to put that into a nook space, to devote a nook space to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right to me.
I agree. Here we've got a singular space. Now, you have to ignore the rest of the house because it's a big problem, but I think the dining space, for a singular dining space, is actually pretty good. I think we've got a space that is a good proportion to fit a table and also good light.
Well,
and
it's nice,
it's outside of the zone of circulation and has a good relationship to the kitchen.
That's right.
So, I mean, I'm not a fan of the rest of the house, but I'm just specifically looking at the dining, and I'm saying that one is actually okay.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So now, single dining rooms, this is where we get into trouble. There's a proportional issue here, because if you imagine the size of a dining table here, this space is too big. I mean, the kitchen is pretty small. Look at the size that we've got for this dining room.
And the living room then
it's
is
the
way
same
too small.
proportion as the living room, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
We're running into other problems here as well. Again, this dining space, I'm not sure here where you would put the table.
Yeah.
Like, let's think about this. Would we put it here like this? Because if that's the case, we're going to have a conflict with the door. Would we move it over here and set it over here? Then what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
In either way, wherever you put the table, you're going to have wasted space for that other little bit of room. And I'm not sure how you do that. Then we've also got that issue with the view from the garage right into the dining area,
like yesterday.
which we don't like. Okay.
No.
This is another issue. Look at this dining room. Again, they're calling that the dining room. Where would you put the table? I mean, if you put it here, it's one of those situations where no matter what you do, you've got a wasted bit of space. If you put it over here, the other side is wasted.
Put my dining room in a different
There's a proportional issue with this.
Right.
The family room also, I feels to me like it should be a nook. Like with the scale of it, it just doesn't feel great.
That's our in-detail analysis of dining areas in single-family houses in the Vancouver area.
And we'd also like to say thank you to everybody who's watching the In Detail segment through Facebook.